Well, hello, Ferrari fans, and welcome back to the Ferrari Fan Club podcast. I am your host, Xander Parsons, and I am joined by a special guest today, Yousuf Nabi. Now, he is the 2025 International GT Maranello Cup champion, currently piloting a Ferrari 488 Challenge Evo race car. He is also the principal and driver for Gotham Motorsport. How's it going, Yousuf? Thank you so much for joining the show.
Hey, thank you for having me. Really appreciate it. Love your channel and your podcast. Been following you and happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the compliment. I really do appreciate that, starting it up as a new project. So what have you been up to lately?
So we're currently in the off season, so really dialing down any changes we want to make to the car. We are members at a country club called Spring Mountain Motorsport Ranch in Las Vegas. Actually, all my teammates are members there, and they have members-only type races once a month. So we've been kind of participating in those in the off season, staying sharp and keeping ourselves in the car. They're exhibition race, they're not points or sanctioned in any way, but they're good, fun, good practice races. And Spring Mountains is an amazing campus.
That's awesome. That's super cool. Would you say that the ones that have maybe less stakes or no points on offer, are those races more enjoyable, or do you more enjoy when there's points at stake?
Look, you always want to have points in stake, right? That's the competitive nature of us as drivers. We're always looking for competitiveness. When I have one of my teammates or another similar car in front of me, it just becomes an amazing race.
Yeah, I totally agree. And something that I think a lot of modern motorsports kind of miss out on is, back in the day, there was all these different kind of races on the calendar. There was invitationals and stuff where like different drivers from other motorsports would kind of come together and race for not a championship or anything, but just to have a good time. And unfortunately, I think it's something that modern motorsport and kind of like the higher echelons kind of lack. So I think that's really cool that people like you and your teams are kind of doing these off-season events. I think that's really awesome.
Yeah, we definitely like this. It's like I said, it's good practice, it's good fun. We get to work on things that we're lacking on. For me, one of my shortcomings in racing has always been, once that green flag flies, I don't peak or put my best times down for maybe 3 or 4 laps in, right? I need to get better at peaking to my best lap right away. Gives us those opportunities to practice on shortcomings that we know we have as drivers.
Very nice. Well, you know what they say, that practice does make perfect. So something else during this episode too is just for like people to kind of understand or get to know you a little bit better. So we can kind of really get into our questions here. If I understand correctly, you're from Kashmir, India. How was your journey to the United States, and how did you really build a foundation once moving over?
So I'm a first gen. I was here, born here. My parents came from India. I think I was 3 months old when they fully settled in. So I was right in that time frame.
Wow.
I did go to school here. I was raised here. At the age of 9, I went back to India and I went to a boarding school until I was 17 years old. So I was raised in a boarding school back in India. And I think it was one of those things where my parents were like, hey, we have the opportunity by coming to America to give our son an educational foundation. Boarding school is a really prestigious thing for us. And it was an experience.
That's amazing. Like really incredible too, and inspiring to like make that jump over and to get a new start somewhere. Like that's really fantastic. And I know you have a history in military or law enforcement. How did you get into that line of work? And then how did that eventually move you into motorsport?
Yeah, so I always have had a competitive nature growing up through school. And then obviously when I was 17 years old, I joined the US Army. I was stationed in Oklahoma, Texas, and Georgia. I did my 4 years. I was honorably discharged. I am a disabled veteran. When I came out, I joined law enforcement. And I've done different facets in law enforcement, from patrol to gangs. I've done dope. My career doing fraud investigation and taking doctors to jail for committing medical fraud. And I think between military and law enforcement, I think 20 years was enough for me to give to this country. And I decided to kind of go out on my own. My racing competitive side has always been there. Prior to Ferrari and cars, I've done motorcycles. I've done offshore jet ski racing. So I've always done some type of competitive natured sport. And I think as I got older, motorsport was just the right thing to fall into.
How? So the jet ski racing, was that kind of like your first race ever? Or
Yeah, I would really say it was. It was, you're racing from, for example, we had Long Beach to Catalina and back, and you're out there on a jet ski going 28 miles offshore, it's hard on your knees, on your back, but when you're in your 20s and 30s, I mean, when you're in your 20s, you could really do it. I don't think I'm physically, I consider myself in good shape, but I don't know if I could physically do that at the age.
honestly, I don't know if I could do that either, but that sounds super cool. And I think my grandfather used to race boats. So like those high speed powered boats and everything. So like stuff on the water is like nothing to joke about. It is like, so I see those guys doing what they're doing, like on watercrafts and everything. And I'm like, man, I don't think that's not for me.
Yeah, I've flown off. I dislocated my shoulders, cracked ribs. Hitting the water at 80 miles an hour is something that's unforgiving.
Yeah, that's brutal.
But with any tough engine powered motorsport, right? That is what you're getting.
Hmm.
I give this analogy a lot, right? My youngest son plays baseball, and you go up to bat as an athlete, and okay, you strike out. You're done. You go into the dugout. That's the end of that. Motorsport or any type of engine powered sport, you make mistakes. The costs are a lot more detrimental, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it is different. So you got to give these drivers and these motorsport athletes credit for what their body goes through mentally and physically.
Yeah, so super interesting start into motorsport or racing in general, kind of like Gilles Villeneuve kind of character when he started out on snowmobiles before he got
Yeah.
into his other racing stuff. That's super interesting. So, what pathway did you take through the motorsport ladder to kind of get where you are now?
So I've always done some type of performance driving. I was big into Porsches back in the day, would do a lot of track day events, Ferrari taking street cars on the track, which is kind of a no-no in the community, right? But I think people really need to drive these cars for what they're built for. I think Ferraris, it doesn't matter what Ferrari you have, you can take it out on the track. It's funny, I recently went to the track and we were testing the car, and the guy I know took his GTC4 Lusso and he's out there doing laps in this four-seater all-wheel drive. It is still built for the track. These cars are amazing performance. And I think it's a shame when people just park them in their garage and look at them and wipe them with a
Yeah,
diaper when they're really meant to be pushed.
I could not agree with you more. It's always one of those things that I find so unfortunate when these cars just get locked away and hide, and that comes to like any high performance vehicle. But yeah, they are totally meant to be used, and that's really cool that you guys are actually out there doing it.
Yeah, we have, so Radu Muntean is also kind of the co-principal with Gotham Motorsports, and a driver with us. And he's taken out his F8. I've taken out my 296. I've taken out my 458 to the track. Really just let's go have a fun time in the car. Visibility is a lot better in street cars than in race cars.
Understandable.
So it's different, but the braking is great on these cars. The grip, the balance. At the end of the day, a Ferrari is a Ferrari and it's built off of racing. And that's what their heritage is. And I don't think any other manufacturer does that better than Ferrari.
I wholeheartedly agree, and it's one of my dreams to eventually kind of like get my hands on one and actually like experience it. I think like the highest level of car I've ever driven is probably like a Subaru STI or something like that. So to actually get my hands on a Ferrari would be such a cool experience.
Yeah, if you're ever out in the area, let me know and we could definitely set you up on a day. More than happy to take you out. I mean, it's such an amazing experience. One of the things we do with Gotham Motorsports is exactly that. So, yes, we love racing, but myself and Radu also are really big in philanthropy. And we believe in helping the next group of dreamers, right? So, we attend karting events. We let these kids get in the Ferrari race cars, play with the buttons, see what it's like. Both of us are the type of people you go to a gas station and, there's always that kid who's like taking a picture and he's like, look, it's
Yeah.
a Ferrari. I'm the kind of guy, I'm like, hey, why don't you get in? Let me take a picture of you in the car, experience it. I think it's so important. And it's such an amazing brand that everybody recognizes it and looks towards it. I feel like if you're not giving that back, I think you're missing out. I think it's putting smiles on these kids and making them hope one day to get in these cars themselves when they grow up.
That's amazing, and I still am that kid. My
Okay.
wife can attest to that. Like whenever I see like a car that I like or something like that, I'm always like look over there, like look at that car, right? And she's like, yeah, it's very red.
Yeah, I think they're amazing, and it's people like you, right? And that's what you want.
Absolutely, that's awesome. I love that. So, what series have you competed in, and what's been your favorite so far?
So I've competed in the Ferrari Challenge events under Club Challenge in a 458. And then I went on to also do Trans Am. And then I ended up with International GT. And I love International GT.
Hmm.
And they visit all the great North American tracks from Watkins Glen, Dakota, Laguna, Sonoma. So you're going to the big profile tracks in North America. And it's cool to race against Porsche Cup cars, Lamborghini Trofeos, GT4 cars. They group all of us together. And sure, we're in different classes, but man, it's amazing to have all these different cars in there that the BOPs are somewhat similar. You're not talking about a 488 challenge with a Miata, right? Where it's such a big gap. You're talking about cup cars, challenge cars, trofeo cars that are all very similar. They may have be in different classes, but it's great to chase after and have a run against a trofeo, right? Or a GT3 Porsche, which isn't in my class, but it's fun to play with and do some wheel to wheel racing. And then watching some of these, like, there was a time at Laguna, International GT had two Bentley GT3s come out, right? And they were amazing to see that these cars, a Bentley, right? Out there with us playing, and it's something really cool. And I like that about International GT, that you can have that European flavor no matter where you're kind of in.
Yeah.
We have Caymans running with us, we have Cup cars, we have, GT3 cars. We've had some fun with some GT4 cars. So there's a lot of different mixtures in there, which I really like.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. So when the GT3 Bentleys were there, were they kind of like up near the front, like battling each other, or were some other cars getting in the mix with them?
So they were up in front. I think at that race, there wasn't any other GT3 cars. So they were up ahead. I remember at Coda, there was the Mercedes GT3 that came out again in its own league. It's funny, these GT3s have so much less power than we do, but the aero and the delivery system of these cars make them so amazing that it's hard for us to keep up with GT3 cars, and we have more horsepower. So horsepower isn't always everything in racing.
I do love that, and I do watch a lot of GT3 racing, and they are fantastic race cars. They're so usable, and like I love watching. Like it was Circuit of the Americas this year for the World Endurance Championship. The track was just absolutely soaked, and the hypercars, the prototypes, are like struggling with mid speed, like mid corner speed, when like the GT3 cars are just shooting off the corners, and the hypercars were actually struggling to get by in the tight sec.
Yeah, I think they have this perfect balance of performance, right? And that's what they look for is BOP in most cars. But I think between aero, weight, and power, they are the perfect mix. I think the running costs are just too high on GT3 cars. And that's why it just doesn't have such a big piece to it. Um, you know, The Ferrari Challenge events are unlike anything that you've ever experienced. If you've never been to one, I highly recommend you
Need
attend a
to
Ferrari
go.
Challenge event. It is amazing. Their hospitality, their setup. I think it is the platinum of racing. If you could do Ferrari Challenge, even attend an event, I highly recommend looking at their calendar. I think tickets are like 25 or 35 bucks to get in. And you'll see all the Ferrari drivers out there, and it is an amazing event.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about Ferrari Challenge. It's definitely on the bucket list as far as attending races go. Since we are like a Ferrari podcast and everything and talking so much about the manufacturer, like, so do you have like a special connection with Ferrari? Like why stick with the brand?
So again, I think it's one of those things like we were talking about, right? Every kid, if you ask them to draw a sports car, is going to draw a red sports car. It's going to be a Ferrari. I think that was me growing up. I remember being 14, 15 and yelling at my mom that there was a red Ferrari. And I was like, right. I think it's the Ferrari piece of it. As a brand, I don't think anyone does it better than Ferrari. I think they're one of the only manufacturers that have been in Formula One since the beginning and
Yep.
still are. I don't think they're collabing with other brands, right? So a Ferrari 296 does not share parts with another car. Right. Versus people always tell me, they're like, oh, look at the Lamborghini Huracan. I'm like, but it's an Audi R8. Right? I hate to say that, but it's really true. I think the whole Porsche, Audi, VW, that whole brand really is one piece. But if you look at a standalone manufacturer that's motorsport driven, Ferrari's the only one who's a standalone manufacturer, right? Their cars are amazing. They've they've kept that, I don't know what you would even call it. It's this cloud that Ferrari sits on. And they do great. They are amazing cars. They're built very well. I think people once used to think, oh, if you have a Ferrari, it's always going to break down. No, they're actually super reliable. I drive a Ferrari every day. That's my daily driver. And I get in it, and sometimes I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm going to make a 300-mile road trip to Vegas today, and I'll go do it in my Ferrari in the rain.
Awesome.
It starts, it runs. They're great cars.
Yeah, they really do have that like mystique, and that prestige is really on another level with Ferrari. It's really what brought me to being such a big fan of the manufacturer. Of course, I don't own any, but I'm just such a huge fan of the manufacturer and watching them across their motorsport endeavors just because of all like the stuff that surrounds them, and their history is so interesting. And there's even parts of Ferrari's history that people don't even totally know like 100%. Like I know with Enzo Ferrari, nobody's even exactly sure when he was actually born. Sometimes there's even mystery and all this kind of stuff. And it's absolutely something that just fascinates me about this car manufacturer.
I think for me, one of the eye-opening experiences with the brand was visiting the factory and the museum in Maranello, Italy. What an experience. What a way to see how somebody cares about the brand. I think the way they do it is amazing. I love the brand. We support Ferrari in our house. We're F1 ready for Ferrari. So for me, what a dream to be sitting in one of these cars and actually racing it. I mean, it's a dream to own one, but to be racing one is another level.
So amazing. Yeah, that's another thing on my bucket list is to go see that museum. Again, I've heard a lot of good things about that as well.
Definitely recommend it. And it's open to everybody. You could book it through a dealer, and you could go out there and take a look at the factory and look at how they make these cars. The quality control and the handmade part of it is still amazing. Of course, technology is coming into play, but they still have this handmade
Hmm.
elegance of their cars.
Yeah, the craftsmanship is again on another level. So, what are your future goals as a racing driver?
So I've been pondering this and kind of thinking about what I want to do. I think I am going to finish 2026 in International GT again. There's another season I have in me. I think after that, I actually want to try some cool things with my Ferraris. So for 2027, we're thinking about doing Pikes Peak. We are for 2027 planning on sending one of the Ferraris to Italy and doing Mille Miglia. We want to do some Italian races. So I want to do some historic things, coming into 2027, and start looking at that. Myself and Radu are really big on trying different things, right?
Yeah.
Maybe build a Ferrari Overlander, maybe like a 320 or maybe even a GTC4 Lusso and kind of
Jeez.
doing a Pecking to Paris rally or something cool. I want to do some historic things with the brand, which I love, and really try some unique stuff.
That sounds awesome. Like doing all these side quests and everything. The Pikes Peak thing really intrigues me. So if you were gonna do the Pikes Peak, would you use the challenge car or would you kind of try something totally
No,
different?
I would do the challenge car. I would love to do it in the challenge car. And again, I don't think a challenge car's going to break any records there. I know the 296 challenged it last year. But just to put up competitive times and to say you've done it in a Ferrari, I think would be really cool. I think you'd really have to have a manufacturer build a special car just for Pikes Peak if you wanted to play in world record type of territory.
Yeah.
But to do it, to say, hey, I've raced cars, I've owned Ferraris, I've done Pikes Peak, I've done Mille Miglia. It's some cool stuff.
No, yeah, that it just sounds super fun. And right, that's why you want to do all kind of these projects and everything is to have a good time, utilize the cars and just enjoy them. So I really respect that. Would you ever be into doing something like a season of GTD in IMSA?
So I would love to. I am a licensed IMSA driver. So I can do some IMSA events. I think with IMSA, it would have to be a particular event. You'd have to find the right car. You'd really have to budget it out. The cost of an IMSA season is crazy. I know SRO, on the other hand, has just, as of 2026, opened up challenge and manufacturer specific cars.
Okay.
So that's going to be a whole new series that we're going to have to watch in 2026 with SRO and say, what are they doing with this series and what is it going to look like? Because it's almost going to be kind of like an international GT, but on the SRO weekends.
Hmm.
I think that's going to be interesting to see. I'm registered for it, and Gotham Motorsports is a team. We are good to go with SRO. So it'll be interesting to see. I want to see one or two events and then see how we would play into it and maybe do a few. I think SRO would be really cool. GT America, when it comes to GT racing, I think the whole GT umbrella under SRO is just a really cool program. So we'll have to see how that one goes. If I wanted to get into it, I would love to get into a GT4 car. I think I've driven a few GT4 cars. The balance, the power, it's the sweet spot. It's just unfortunate Ferrari doesn't make one. They just don't play on that GT4. But it would be really cool if they made like the 296 the GT4, and then whatever the SF90, let's say, they made that platform into the GT3 car. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah. I could definitely
Think about
see that.
Porsche does that, right? They take their Caymans and they make them the GT4 cars, and then they take their 911s and make them their GT3 cars.
Totally. I don't know why Ferrari hasn't kind of broken out into the GT4 space yet.
I don't think they want to get into it. I think it's just too much BOP regulation is what I would assume. But it would be really cool if they ever did that. If they ever did that, I would be the first one in line to buy a GT4 car.
That would be super cool. But yeah, it's going to be super interesting to see how that SRO, that other GT category kind of plays out. And again, it probably is going to only help things with being like a stepping stone to racing with the GT3 cars. And I think that's a really great thing to introduce more stepping stones to get people towards like if they do want to move through the ranks and moving up through there. Because like if you compare like GT Challenge Europe to GT Challenge America, like the grid size in Europe is massive.
Yeah.
And of course, that's just because Europe is the central for like that kind of racing. But to have more of those things in America and maybe kind of like, boost the weekend size of cars or grids, it can only be a good thing for motorsport here.
And I think International GT is the perfect platform for that, right? I don't think there's another series that you can take manufacturer specific race cars and go racing in North America. I think if you buy a manufacturer specific race car like a Ferrari Challenge or a Porsche Cup or a Lamborghini Trofeo, it's always been you're stuck into that bubble. and
Mhm.
you're not leaving it really. Moving into these two different series is amazing. And I think IGT, International GT, was the pilot of this. And they really mastered this whole thing. And it was the only platform we could find to race these manufacturer specific race cars against others in a competitive environment.
That's fantastic. Absolutely love that. So, your team, Gotham Motorsport, has a STEM and a youth outreach program. Would you like to tell the listeners a little bit more about what you guys do with those things?
Yeah. So as we travel around the country, usually Sundays after the races, we tear down the cars. It's usually Sunday afternoon, and we invite STEM programs from every city we visit to bring their kids out to show them car setup, tear down. You're not always going to be an F1 driver, is what I tell people. I think it
Yep.
takes a lot of talent and a lot of money, right? But if you want to get into this, there's other things you can look at from a STEM perspective. There's so much science, technology, and math that goes into racing and motorsports in general. And what me and Radu have done is try to bring that and bridge that gap to make it more accessible for these youth. So our program director reaches out to different STEM programs. Let's say we're going to CODA, we're going to reach out to Austin and San Antonio area. And we're going to say, hey, if you'd like to send your kids out, we will walk them through how we set up cars, how we use science, corner balancing, alignment, drag, height. There's so much that goes into this. Let's look at the ECU performance from a programmer standpoint. Are all the engines firing, timing, right? Little things like that. Do you want to look at more of a technology? How about we look at telemetry and we match that to what I'm doing versus what the car is doing, and what are the reactions in those, and how does that all play into it? Tire management, fuel management. There's so much that goes into it. So we designed this program, and if you guys check out our Instagram, Motorsports Gotham, you'll see it there, where we invite these kids out and get them experiencing it. The youth outreach program was something a little bit different. We have done a lot of philanthropy with kids. And as we look into 2026, we've partnered with other people like Supercar Wishes Foundation, where we're actually giving children who may have ailments or underprivileged or whatever they may be an opportunity to see the race car, even if we have to bring it out to them. So we've gone out to schools, taken pictures with these kids, got them in the cars, and done some cool stuff, and I like doing those things.
Yeah, I love how you guys do that. That is super cool. And to kind of show kids other avenues if they really want to get into something like that, into motorsports, there is the whole technological side of it. And to open up those career opportunities, I think is just a fantastic thing that you guys do. That's so awesome.
Yeah, I think it's really unique. As to date, I haven't heard any race teams really doing this, but we get them out into the paddock, we get them out into the pit, our mechanics walk them through what they're doing, and we show them that stuff. We as drivers are there, and we can give them kind of that thing. One of the interesting pieces for my teammate Radu is he's actually a car designer. This is what he does for a living. He designs cars, and he's worked with GM, he's worked with Ford, he's worked with Tesla and other manufacturers, and he does a lot of aero graphics, drawings with kids and things like that. So how do you take art into this too, right? And look at it from an aerodynamic perspective and a design perspective. And that's a really cool experience that he gives them.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've always found other elements of just being in the motorsport industry super fascinating. Like, of course, when I was little, I was like, I totally want to race cars and be a driver and everything. That did not happen. But I always thought like the strategic element of racing is just so cool. Like, that'd be such a cool career path. But I mean, that's why I'm starting the podcast, because I at least want to be like involved somewhat or get a piece of this.
Absolutely. And there's so much, right? And imagine you with what you just said, if you were to come out to a race, let's say, and we walk through the car, how much more your understanding would be for what you're doing if you understood the behind the scenes of what goes into these cars.
Absolutely. Yeah, that is super cool. And yeah, I'd love to actually come check out your guys' stuff in more detail. So I'm totally going to
Let
have
us
to
know.
hit you up on that.
Yeah, let us know. I think for you, I know you're on the West Coast. I think we'll have Laguna Seca and Monterey. I would highly recommend you come out to that one. That's a really good event.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely plan on that for sure. So I've read a little bit up on working with a Ferrari Pro driver as a coach. His name, I believe, is Dario Capit Capitanio, I think, if I'm pronouncing that
His
right.
na- his pronunciation is Dario Capitanio.
Okay, thank you so much for helping me out with that. So,
Yeah.
like, what is the driver and coach dynamic like, and why is that so important?
So I met Dario 4 years ago now, and he's been in the car with me ever since. He's a pro. He's a Ferrari instructor. He's gone as far as Formula Renault when that was around and was racing with them. He's raced Lamborghini prototypes in the past, and now he's with Ferrari full time. Amazing driver, and as a bronze, you need to have a pro with you. He's not only my coach, he's my co driver. He's been a huge mentor for me to guiding me on how to become better in the car, helping me with my focuses. And I always tell people these relationships with these pros are so important. There's so many of them out there, right? And there's going to be a lot of people who think these pros are like a dime a dozen, right? Because they didn't make it. No, it's actually more than that. Them getting to know you, knowing your pros, your cons, where you lack, giving you that feedback. For me, Dario's not only live sharing, but he's on the radio with me. Okay, car coming up between. This is your gap. Remember your race strategy. Hey, you're taking this turn a little too aggressively, or be more aggressive here. This is why you're getting this live feedback from a driver who's watching your brake, your throttle, your steering angle, and watching you in the car. Dario's done an amazing job of that, and him and I train all year together, and then we race together. International GT is the only series, again, in our space that allows these pros to share the car with us. So even for our challenge, there's no driver swaps. So
Right.
International JT gives this driver spot where we're both in this together, competing for points as a team. So that's really cool dynamic. Watching the pros go against each other is really cool. We all know each other, right? So that's another piece of it. For Dario, I think the bond became a little bit more special when he started a karting school for kids, and he does go-kart racing with youth. And my children obviously were part of that program. And for him to coach them and me was super cool. He introduced me to go-karting where he was like, hey, Yusuf, you've been in a car. Let's get you in a go-kart so you can kind of sharpen your skills. And that was such a cool experience for me to try. But if you didn't have a pro like Dario, you would never know that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really cool to have that kind of relationship and working with a coach like that. And it is true what you say is being able to be like a good coach. It's not just somebody that didn't make it in motorsport, because to be a really good driver coach is a skill set all on its own. Because I've listened to a lot of Ross Bentley's work. He's a really like renowned driving coach and all this kind of stuff. And he says that he so enjoys, like loves it sometimes, more than actually being in the car. But you do have to have that mentality of like, you got to have those people skills. You want to have to like work with somebody and to continue to kind of mold them and shape them into ways that will improve their skills, but in a way that the communication or kind of works for them. So I really respect the art.
Yeah, the dynamic's crazy, I'll tell you. So there was this race, we were doing a fun run, and I could hear it. I slowed down and my lap time started dropping. And Dario's like on the radio and he's like, Yusuf, if you let him pass you, I'm going to quit on you. I'm not going to work with you anymore, right? And I was like, dude, I'm like, I have no grip. And he's like, nobody has grip. And I'm like, okay. Turns out I had a flat tire. So I was losing air pressure. So when we got out of the car, I was like, you're so mean to me. And he's like, man, I'm so glad you had a flat. Otherwise, I would be upset, right? So you build these cool relationships and have these amazing stories.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was funny.
Yeah, he was trying to give you some motivation, I guess.
Yeah. And his wife and I and our families, we've all spent time together, obviously. We've gone on trips together and done some cool stuff. So we all have that bond. And my wife just looks at him sometime and they have their own fights.
Yeah.
So it's a great dynamic. So I think for drivers who want to get serious, having a pro like Dario and building that relationship and getting yourself better is so important. There's obviously always a cost associated with anything, but it's huge. I wouldn't be driving at the level that I'm driving if it wasn't for him.
It's awesome. So the question is like, do you like harass him back?
Absolutely. I will pick on him any chance I get. But again, it's a part of that relationship, right? And you build that during the season, you build that during the off season. You know, him and I have weekly calls before races. We do screen shares and we do a lot of telemetry. We do a lot of sim practicing, you know, so we share a lot of that data to prepare as well.
Yeah, that's great. And I do love that dynamic. I've always thought like you become really good friends once you're able to like pick on each other and stuff. So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
that's awesome. So you did mention your kids a little bit in the karting and everything. How has it been kind of sharing your love of motorsport with them? And are they still pursuing anything in the field of racing?
So it's an interesting dynamic with them. I got them into it and they were doing great. And I started really participating more and more full time. And I've kind of been like, okay, you guys go have fun, but right now's my time to do
Yeah.
this. And I think in 2027, they will definitely get more competitive again. Right now, they've just been, you know, going out there and practicing with Dario when they can. It's weird for kids, right? There's a school piece of this. They have their own sports that their friends do.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting dynamic to balance as well, right? Sometimes my kids want to see me race and we got to pull them out of school. And then now, like, I'm getting letters like, "Oh, your son has unexcused tardies," and I'm like, "But he's in second grade. Like, what did he miss? Like the
Right.
SATs?" So I think there's that piece of it too. How many kids actually cart? So it's not common for my kids to have someone to kind of relate to in their school or in their neighborhood versus they're like, "Dad, I want to do baseball," because all the kids in our neighborhood are doing it. All the friends at school are doing
Mhm.
it. So it's like, "Do you want to do baseball or karting?" And they're like, "Well, I want to do baseball." And I'm like, "Okay, not every kid gets to go karting, but up to you." So there's that dynamic of in there, which is really interesting and cool.
Honestly, to be pulled out of school, like, for something that involves, "Oh, I gotta go to a track and watch a race and all this kinda stuff," like,
Right.
coolest excuse to be pulled out of school ever.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely interesting.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, what are the demands of a season of racing, and how do you balance your schedule with, like, work, family, and then your motorsport endeavors?
So it is time consuming. I think there's a lot to play in this. Obviously, since we built our own team, there's logistics, there's people management, and there's all these other things that go into it. So there's that piece of it. And then there's the race schedule itself and travel. Plus you have your own time with your own family and your own travel. I am blessed that I do have some great employees and partners who've worked with me for over 10 years now that help me run the day-to-day operations of my businesses and work. Um, and that's allowed me some freedom to kind of focus on this new endeavor as a full-time thing. Um, 2025 was a lot and I'm hoping we're going to have things a little bit more smoother in 2026. But there is a lot that goes into it. And I think there's a physical aspect, there's traveling, there's family, there's work. So, yeah, racing, it is addicting. It's a passion. You have to be committed to this. And that's what
Yeah.
I tell everybody. You really, really got to want this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you do have to want it, and it is all a balancing act. So that's really inspiring that you can, have all of those things and just kind of teetering and balancing, and that's awesome. It does take a lot of skill to do all those things at once.
Yeah, and I'm blessed. My wife helps me out and has been super supportive, in these endeavors. So it's good when you have a partner that kind of pushes you. Both my wife and Radu's wife will push both of us and be like, "Why aren't you guys out at the track? Why are you guys home? You guys need to get out there more." And I'm like, "Okay, that's really cool."
Yeah, to have a supportive family, I mean, like that is probably like at to the end of the day, it's the most important thing is to have a family behind you that really backs what you're doing and supporting you. And I totally agree. Like with doing this endeavor, of course, this is my side project. So it does take more time that I could be spending on other things. But to have that support from family is invaluable. You really can't measure it. So It's super important.
Absolutely.
All right. So for anyone who might be looking for inspiration, like what is your advice to someone who is trying to follow their dream?
You know, I will always say, I think one of the biggest advices I give people is figure out a way. And I'm a huge believer in there are three types of people in this world. There are people who make things happen, people who wonder or who watch what happens, and people who wonder what happened. It's really what you want to do. These opportunities are not going to knock on your door, whether it's racing, whether it's getting into racing, whether it's business or personal. It just doesn't happen on its own. It takes you. You have to make the effort. You're going to have to be the one who wants it, and you're going to have to do something about it if you do want it. If you're waiting for it to happen, it's not going to happen. Figure out your goals and take actions to achieve those goals. It's that simple. Make the decision, don't look back. Keep moving forward.
That's super good advice. Yeah, it is all about just like actually getting up and doing something. If you want to be a part of something, have a project, you just got to get up and do it, at least start it. And that's something that I've been really trying to focus on mentally as well, is just if you want to do, just start it and kind of go from there, see how it evolves and changes over time.
Yeah. And you know what? Worst case scenario, it doesn't work out. At least you walk away saying, I tried my best. I tried. And you have no regrets. And that's the most important thing in life.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Well, I did save some time at the end of this episode for maybe
Okay.
like a few more like fun, quick kind of round questions. So the first one is, if you could only own one Ferrari, which one would it be and why?
I think for me, if I could only own one Ferrari, it would be a Ferrari Enzo. I think that is the most amazing Ferrari. It's the perfect blend of the past and the future. You can drive it, you could drive it on the track, you could drive it on the street. It is, I think it was the peak of Ferrari, of the blend of the past and the new. You know, obviously when you look at the new LaFerrari Apartas and things like that, they're amazing, but the misses that analog feel that me personally I like. And I think that's why I like the Enzo. It was that perfect blend.
Absolutely. Incredible looking car. I love how it kind of looks like a prototype.
Yeah.
Like it could be at Le Mans or something like that. And it is one of my favorite Ferraris of all time. It's just a fantastic looking car, sounding car. It ticks all the boxes.
It does. And like I said, if you could only choose one car that you could be amazing on a racetrack and still go to dinner in it, it would be a Ferrari Enzo. You know, something that's going to look really cool and hold its value. And like I said, that perfect pinnacle time of Ferrari when they were transitioning from analog to the now fully digital hybrid models, right? It was that perfect spec.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree. So, what is your favorite track to race on?
For me, I'm torn between Laguna Seca and Circuits of the America. I love Circuits of the America. It's a F1 track. It was built for F1. It's got that. The history of Laguna Seca makes it amazing. That 10-story corkscrew drop, until you've been in a race car and done it, feels like nothing else in the world. Look, you're strapped into a race car, but you feel your body lift.
Man,
And you know, you're welcome to check out some of my onboard videos on YouTube on Laguna Seca, but when you're looking at it, when you're at the top, you can't see the bottom, right? It's completely blind dip and you just come through it and you just got to trust the car, stay on your line and feel that shift. Same thing when you're crossing over on the straightaway, when you're crossing over the start finish line, there's this huge crest and it curves and it's an amazing feeling where you know you don't have to lift off the gas, but your body is just telling you, lift. So it's got that historic piece of it. It's a lot more narrow. Passing is a lot harder. Whereas Coda, there is plenty of runoff. There is room for mistakes. There is places to pass safely. And you get a blend of everything at Coda, which makes it cool.
yeah, I do. Both those tracks are amazing. Circuit of the Americas has been referred to as like a greatest hits album of like Grand Prix circuits all mashed together. And then Laguna Seca is a very old school circuit. So like they're on completely different sides of the spectrum, but both have
Yeah.
great qualities. Great racetracks.
Absolutely. If you, I mean, I recommend going out to Circuit City, America. Just the whole flavor there, the Texas hospitality. I've been there with Formula One, I've been there with Ferrari, and I've been there with International GT, and it's amazing.
Yeah, I've got to go once for the Formula One race. I think that was in 23 that I went. Super amazing experience, super cool. Like they got all the music stuff as well. There's so much to look at and do. It can be very overwhelming, but super fun.
It is. I definitely recommend motorsports fans should go to an F1 race. It is super cool. I did do Vegas. It was a little too Vegas for me. You know, I like Vegas, but it wasn't special for me the way Coda was.
Yeah, I totally agree because Circuit of the Americas is like it's the Grand Prix of the United States. It is the traditional
Exactly.
Grand Prix circuit. It offers everything you want from a fan's perspective from a Formula One race. And I do love how it's a purpose built track.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, my next, like one of my bucket list items is definitely to go see WEC at that track.
Okay.
I would
Yeah,
love to
I
see
think it
that
would,
there.
yeah, I think anything at Coda is always special and cool.
Yeah, fantastic facility. So, who do you admire in the racing world? And this can be past or present.
You know, I think for me, I'm biased, but I'm always a Charles Leclerc fan.
Yeah.
You know, it's he's a Ferrari driver, so obviously, you know, I always watch him with a close microscope. I don't know. 2025 was rough for Ferrari for Formula One. I think they had some peaks, but they had some more lows than peaks. It'll be interesting to see what they're going to do in 2026. But I definitely think he's the right guy in the right seat, you know, and he's performed fairly well for what he's been given.
Hmm.
I do miss Signs. I think Signs was a great partner and teammate for him, but Ferrari needed to make changes. But I think Leclerc definitely is going to be there for a while, and I think he's doing pretty good with it. And I'm definitely excited to see how Ferrari does in 2026.
Oh, me too. Me too. It was rough kind of starting the podcast on a season like 2025 with having to continually talk about uh disqualifications, little DNFs, or starting on pole and not converting that to a victory. Thank goodness for the World Endurance Championship with Ferrari's efforts over there because it gave me something a little bit more positive to talk about.
They did amazing over there, right? So that was that. You know, I think they're still a top contending team, right? You know, they're going to be in the top four. You know, they're going to be in the top four. They always will be. Last year, at least they did, you know, 24, they did what, second in the Constructor Championship,
Yeah.
which was huge. This year, they weren't in the top three. So I think that was a little rough. So, like I said, it'll be interesting to see what they do in 2026. A lot of new rules and regulations coming to F1. So that'll be interesting to please see how that plays into it too.
I am so curious to see how all of that goes with new regulations and everything like that. New engines, like still same specification, but different parts and configuration. I'm so fascinated by it. But maybe finishing fourth in the Constructors' Championship was a huge play by Ferrari because now they get more of that wind tunnel and CFD time. So
Yeah. And maybe that's what they needed.
yeah, it's true. And I also am a huge Charles Leclerc fan. I started out as a Sebastian Vettel fan. Like he's the one that brought me to Ferrari. And I loved like watching him win in red and everything. Sebastian Vettel winning a race with Ferrari just felt so good and like trying to emulate Michael Schumacher. I absolutely loved that. And then, you know, this guy coming up through the ranks, Charles Leclerc, I saw that race in Formula 2 when he was at Bahrain, and it was
Okay.
during the sprint race, and you don't pit during the sprint race, but he decides to come into the pits, and he's like near the back of the field at this point, and brilliant strategy call. He overtakes everybody coming back to the field to win the race. And like at that moment, I was like, this guy is gonna be something special.
Yeah, I definitely think he is. I mean, I grew up watching more of Ayrton Senna and Michael Schumacher. That was the time that I was really into it. And even till today, Ayrton Senna's been still talk about the guy and it still gives you chills, right?
Yeah.
He is who he is. And there's no one like him in motorsport, even till today, I feel. But yeah, let's cross our fingers for a good 2026 for Ferrari.
I hope so. And honest, if Ferrari delivers, Leclerc is going to be the guy that can absolutely deliver on a championship worthy car. He's got the
I think
caliber.
so. I think Hamilton still, I mean, he's still a what, 8-time world champion? I mean, let's not
Like, 7,
call him out.
but, like, 8 theoretically. Like, a lot of people still call him an 8-time world champion because 2021 got robbed.
Okay. I mean, so he's not, I, I, I don't know what it is with him yet. Maybe he's just not comfortable with the car yet.
Mhm.
Maybe it's new. It takes everybody time, even us in our normal world, change and changing and adjusting to it takes time. So
It
let's see
does.
what he does in 2026.
It does take a lot of time, and I do strongly believe that Hamilton still has all of that, like, fighting spirit and everything within him. I still feel like the old Hamilton can resurface and come back out, but like you said, it does take quite a bit of time to adapt to something completely different and completely new. So I am excited to see his evolution as well. So this might be a funny question just because we've been talking about F1 so much, but what is your favorite motorsport to watch?
We watch it regularly, keep up with all the races. During the off season, we watch the past season again. I love Formula One. It is the top tier level of motorsport racing. I think there's nothing above Formula One. It's the pinnacle of motorsport.
It absolutely is. It is the pinnacle of motorsports, top of the line, engineering, cars, drivers, just absolutely everything. And that is what is so fascinating about Formula One. And it has been so interesting to see the explosion of Formula One across the United States. I remember
And
starting to watch,
Netflix.
yeah, Netflix blew it up and all this kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
I started watching it in 2013, and like nobody in my state was talking about Formula One or anything like that. Like nowadays, like I'll just see at the grocery store somebody wearing like a Formula One shirt or like team kit or something like
Right.
that. And that was like it only happened a few years ago.
Yeah, I think it was the perfect storm, right? It was Netflix and COVID. It gave people time to watch things like Drive to Survive. They got purchased out, I want to say before COVID, by their new media group. And it really just changed. And I think Netflix really changed the dynamic of bringing it to the more mainstream world. I don't think it was as popular, as watched as it is what it is today.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it is cool to have this influx of fans and everything because then, people like you and me can actually like get involved more. And there's more people to kind of like go around and to share in these interests. So I think it is a really cool thing that the fan base has really exploded like this.
Yeah, it is. It is really cool to see.
Yeah, I think we need more of this honestly across the motorsport field in general. Like IndyCar and stuff like that could really use something.
I think GT racing is not looked at as enough as what it should be. It's funny how many people I talk to and they're like, "What's international GT?" And I tell them, and then they start watching it on Sundays and Saturdays on TV. And they're just like, "Oh my God, this is amazing."
Yeah.
And watching these GT cars out there, because at the end of the day, these GT cars are really, they're actual true street cars as well. They're built off of those platforms. So to watch this is really cool. And, International GT's on Saturdays and Sundays on our race weekends, and you can watch it from home. And it's super cool to watch these GT cars racing.
I absolutely agree. And that is something that could use more eyes too, is just the whole world of sports car racing in general. Because I see a lot of the times when people will get into like the top of the line or whatever the top of the line sport is. And then as they're getting into it, they're kind of just like, well, how come they're not like passing each other as much and everything like that? I was like, well, it's not an overtaking formula. It's this kind of formula. If you want to see that, I'm like, there's so many other categories of racing you got to check out. If you kind of want to see the, wheel banging and door to door kind of stuff, like there's different flavors out there in the motorsport world and for everybody.
And it's crazy when you say that, because I was thinking back. One of the number one questions I'm always asked is, how fast does your car go? And I'm just like, it's not how fast your car goes in motorsports. It's how fast your car can go, brake, turn, and then go fast again right? And they don't understand that all the time. I think maybe it's the American NASCAR mentality in there, or what it is, or the drag racing, or
Maybe.
what exactly the feel is of racing is weird in America. Europe doesn't have it. They understand motorsport tracks have turns. America's a little bit different. So yeah, I always tell people it's not about going fast. It's about going fast, braking, turning, and then going fast again, right? So the motorsports has changed and there's so many different forms of it that I think the sports car piece of it really needs to be shown more.
Absolutely, and you're dead on the money with that kind of theory there, because Europe doesn't even hardly ever talk about top speed or anything like that. But in the United States, that is like such a huge focus because we got NASCAR, we got the Indy 500, we got all the super speedways and everything like that. America is obsessed with just absolute speed and everything like that. But we are kind of seeing this turning point of other motorsports becoming more popular. So I think the mentality will also kind of shift as well as time goes on.
Yeah, I believe it will. I think this new culture coming up, and I think GT car racing in general just needs more exposure and more time.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. So if you could race in any series this year with like an unlimited budget, like what series would you pick and why?
Formula One.
Formula One? Yeah.
No, I found the perfect mix being an international GT. I think it's got that small town kind of vibe where every driver knows everyone. We all shake each other's hands. After the races, we all podium hug each other and congratulate each other.
Yeah.
But then we get on the track and we're super competitive against each other.
That's awesome.
And I love that feel about it. So I definitely think I would love to, if I had that, I would. I think going back to Ferrari Challenge and doing Ferrari Challenge races would be amazing as well. There's a huge following. The challenge racing is amazing. If you're a Ferrari fan, which I am, I think Ferrari Challenge is where you really need to be. I think GT3 racing would be a good one as well. To get into a GT3 car,
Yeah.
be really cool, and compete in some endurance championship type racing would be really neat.
Oh, yeah, that would be. And to be a driver, kind of sharing one of the Ferrari GT3 cars with some of the official Ferrari drivers would just be an experience like unmatched. Like that would be so cool.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it's funny, we've been talking about what's called a Fun Cup. So in Belgium at Spa, they do a 24-hour race with Volkswagen Beetles.
My goodness.
And there's like 100 of them. And it's 6 drivers. And, a couple of us have been throwing this around for a while. And we've been talking to Dario. And we're like, we got to do this and scratch it off our bucket list. Like, that would be on my list. I would definitely, if I could make the time and figure it all out, the logistics, I would definitely think that would be an awesome experience.
Absolutely, you guys should do that. That would be amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's called the Fun Cup, and it's just all Volkswagen Beetles.
That's brilliant. Brilliant. That would be so fun for you guys to participate in that. All right. So, last question here. Out of the current Formula One drivers, who do you think you could take on in a race using your current type of car?
Oof, oh no. I'd probably say I'd have to be in the back somewhere with those guys. I think even your lowest level Formula One driver, I don't want to put out any names, but anyone in the back of the pack is still pretty good to be in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
People make fun of Lance Stroll a lot, right? Obviously with his dad and Aston Martin and everything like that.
Yeah.
He still is competing for points in some races, which kind of tells you he's not the best, but he's definitely still a Formula One driver and his body can handle it. He's got the mental and physical discipline to do it. So to me, I'm like, any of those guys are top notch. It doesn't matter who they are. I read this thing about Ricardo doing the Baja 1000, and I was like, man, could you imagine
Wow.
that guy in Baja 1000? He's still a pro driver, the
Yeah,
top pro driver.
absolutely.
It's going to be amazing. I think that's going to be really cool. So I definitely wouldn't compare myself to any of those guys or even think I could go toe to toe. I think credit we're given, they're on a different level.
100%. And it's something that Ed Straw from the race like always says is that you have to be at a certain caliber to even make it to Formula One. And all the drivers on the grid are fantastically amazing, talented drivers. It's just that there are those select few that are just like almost not human. They're just on that level that's just like several notches above everybody else. So there is like the grid is full of amazing, fantastic drivers. And then there's a handful of drivers that are just that much better than everybody else.
And think about this. Look at the grid time on the last race. You're talking about a 2-second spread between top and last. 20
Yeah.
cars within 2 seconds. So they're 10th of a second apart from each other. That's millimeters difference.
Yeah, it's
It's
incredibly close.
milliseconds. It's not what it used to be. They are so bunched up, and the spread being 1 to 2 seconds from front to back. I mean, it's crazy. It's coming out of a hairpin and accelerating, and comparing it to the difference of like a blinking of an eye is what takes you from first to 10th nowadays. That is
Yeah,
crazy.
that is absolutely crazy. And that's one thing I hope we don't lose when the 2026 regulations. Of course, there might be bigger gaps, but through time, like convergence and everything like that. But you're so right with how close the Formula One grid is. And actually, maybe just throw in like one more auxiliary question. If all of the cars were equal in Formula One, like how do you think the championship would actually shake out? Do you think Verstappen would still be up there leading the charge, or?
Absolutely. He is an amazing driver. I don't know if you saw, did you watch Verstappen get in the 296 GT3 car at Nürburgring?
I had like read about, I heard all, I didn't watch the race and everything, but I heard about it and how he basically had that thing locked in at the beginning of that
He
race.
dominated it, right? In his Verstappen racing car. And he chose a Ferrari 296 GT3, and he annihilated them. You were still a driver. He is an amazing driver. He's
Yeah,
not human to do the things he does. Think he's going to go down in history as one of the greats. Think about the spread this year from the beginning of the season to the end. I mean, the guy was what, 2 points off or something
yeah,
close
yeah,
like
just
that
two
to
points.
Lando. I mean, what he's able to do it. And I think he is one of the best. So yeah, I think Verstappen would definitely dominate in any car you put him in.
Absolutely, yeah, he is on another level. I would like to think if the cars were equalized, that at least like Leclerc and Russell or some of those guys would at least have a chance, but they would definitely have to take advantage of Verstappen's off days if he has any.
I think he does. So here's an interesting fact about him. He's the FIFA World Cup esports champion. I
Verstappen?
didn't know if you know. Verstappen is
What?
an esports champion while being a Formula One
My
champion. He
gosh.
killed it in esports for FIFA World Cup. That just gives you an idea of the level of this guy. I think it's just, how could you be the Formula One champion and then go be an esports
Yeah.
champ?
At this rate, we're going to have to wait for him to retire or something, and maybe Oliver Behrman can bring home the championship for Ferrari.
I think it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of shifts as we go into this year. Red Bull's changed a lot, and bringing Cadillac and Audi to the grid this year.
Mhm.
This is definitely going to be an interesting year to watch Formula One.
It's going to be fantastic. I absolutely can't wait. And of course, I'm going to be there for the whole F1 season covering Ferrari's endeavors. So I hope it's going to be a good year.
Awesome. And I hope we see you at some international GT races. And, you're always welcome. We'll make sure you get paddock passes and come out with us and definitely try it out and kind of see the GT sport racing world. I know you're big in Formula One, but for everybody more mainstream, there's GT sports racing, and I think international GT is definitely those events that you want to check out. So I definitely recommend checking out the calendar to anybody watching, and if you're local or can make it, definitely please come out.
Absolutely. It's definitely going on the list. I would love to come join you guys out there at one of those races. Well, that pretty much brings this episode to a close. Thank you so much, Yousuf, for joining for this interview. I've had a great time chatting with you. Of course, if you want to check out Yousuf's stuff or Gotham's Motorsports, all those links will be down in this podcast description, along with all of my socials as well, if you want to check that out. So, please follow the show wherever you might be listening. And if you think we're doing a good job, a review would absolutely help as well. But this is pretty much it for the Ferrari Fan Club podcast in this episode. Thanks again, Yousuf, for joining us.
Thanks for having me, everybody. Take care.
Of course. And wherever you are in the world, hope you're having a good one.